Hello and welcome. One of the nerve centers of the Indian BPO or BPM industry is Gurgaon, which is adjoining Delhi, and that's where we are right now. It's also useful to know how this area has been responding to and coping with the supply and the shifts in this industry as it's grown furiously in the last decade or so. So joining us to talk about that is Nitin, who is CEO of Fidelity International, which also feeds into Fidelity, which is the well-known asset management company. Nitin, thank you very much for speaking with us. So the Gurgaon thing sounds interesting, right? Because this industry is really kind of grew out of here and then expanded all over the place and has become what it has today. But and I guess being here also highlights some of the problems that it faces, right? There are infrastructure issues, there are supply issues, there are talent issues, there are skill issues. So we'll come to some of those in a moment. But before that, let me ask you a more general question. How are things looking for you today?
See, I think overall, I think things are looking very good, for the business that I manage. Often, what's bad for the domestic economy ends up being good for the offshore economy. So clearly from a cost arbitrage perspective, it's looking very, very healthy. But I think the whole game is not just about cost arbitrage. If I see over the last couple of years, there has been a big push around value addition. That what these centers can deliver is not just about transactional support and kind of execution, but there is a lot of domain expertise that's been built in. There's a lot of experience which is now there, and the combination can be used to do a lot more. I think that promise is now getting realized. That promise is getting realized. So just the combination of improving cost arbitrage and the value addition, now the promise turning into delivery. I think that's great. So I think just in terms of the setup that I manage, in 3 years, we have grown from 1,250 people to 2,000 people. So
and these are the so-called downturn years, at least from an India point of view. Yeah. That's interesting. So tell us about doing business in Gurgaon, which is, like I said, is symptomatic of some of the problems and the solutions that this industry faces.
Yeah, I think Gurgaon is at very interesting crossroads. So I chaired the regional council for Haryana, so I can talk about it very personally. Now, Gurgaon is a very large hub for the industry. We have 250,000, maybe 300,000 employees in the IDBP industry here. So it's a very, very large hub. We contribute 8% or so of Haryana's GDP. But I think it's also fair to say that Gurgaon is facing a moment of growth. Costs are rising. What we have seen is the cost for comparable processes in Gurgaon are perhaps higher than most of the cities now in India. And further growth is getting challenged. Now, growth is still happening because there is the momentum. So a company like ours, we are in Gurgaon, that's the only site for us. We are growing because of the macro factors, and that growth is happening here. But fresh growth is getting challenged, and there are a couple of reasons why that is happening. There is a twin squeeze that is happening in Gurgaon. One is around the talent squeeze, and second is the infrastructure bottleneck. So if you look at the talent squeeze, most of us who run our businesses out of Gurgaon, there's only a very small fraction of local population that we hire. Most of the people that we employ come either from NCR, Delhi or other parts of NCR,
or rest of the country,
or they come from the rest of the country. So there isn't a local population where they have a reason to be here. Our people that we get, they are here because it's a good job and we pay well, right? So all that implies is that we probably are paying a bit of a premium for the talent. The second issue is just around the infrastructure bottleneck. The Gurgaon does not really have a public transportation system, and connectivity with NCR is still quite limited. As a result, most of us end up running our big kind of fleets of cabs. That in many cases is the second largest cost item that we have.
After salaries.
After salaries. So I pay more for running my cab service than what I pay as rent for my entire facility. And that's saying something, yeah. And it's not just the cost aspect of it, but there is impact, around just the health and safety, around pollution, so city is getting clogged because of the lack of infrastructure. And I think the combination of these two issues, the talent kind of squeeze and the infrastructure bottleneck, I think those are very, very urgent and important issues for us to solve.
So let me ask you a couple of questions on the infrastructure side. So what about 24-hour power and things like that? I mean, not what you generate in your complex, but
I think the power situation has improved.
Okay.
In the past years, it has been an issue, but I would say over the last year or so, the power situation has improved.
So are you getting mostly grid power, or?
That is improved. I would not put the power supply at the same level as the talent issue and the infrastructure bottleneck.
Got it. So tell me something. I mean, you're present in other countries as well.
Yeah.
Now, would your centers there be transporting their people to work every day?
We don't.
Right. So that's an interesting. It's an India kind of situation, right?
Yeah.
But it also happened, and I'm only kind of discussing that. It also happened at a time because the industry started, and you needed to incentivize people to come and join this industry, and therefore work late hours and so on. But it's also not changing. Why is that? Is it because people are expecting it, or from your side you're forced to keep incentivizing people because you're not finding them?
See, I think you get into a bit of a comfort zone. The employees get into a comfort zone, and there's a bit of an entitlement thing that gets institutionalized. And also, from a company perspective, there's a bit of a fear factor that if I'm not providing, this is my competitive advantage. If I'm not providing company transportation, I may not be able to attract people, and if people are using public transportation, they may be late, and and I may miss out on some of my critical processes. So I think there are reasons, but my broader view is that this has to be challenged. I think there are many companies that have moved to using metro in a very significant way. So I see a very, very, very significant move there. And just to talk about NASSCOM and some of the things we are driving. So a very big initiative we are driving as a regional council is active commuting, which is encouraging our member companies and employees to move from using cabs and also their own personal cars to a mix of using public transportation, which is metro. Then working with the government in terms of getting a public, a bus, public bus service started in Gurgaon, which Gurgaon does not really have, and then encourage, cycling and walking. And this is a big change.
It's pretty holistic. I mean.
Yeah, because see. When you think about the overall industry and say active commuting, you may have a question that is that the biggest thing for the industry to focus on? But if you actually think it through,
it's a very critical component.
Yeah, that what is bottlenecking the industry today in Gurgaon, the second largest center for the industry in India, it is the infrastructure. And if we have to address it, we have to kind of look at this. And it is both a supply side issue, where we have to work with the government at different levels to build that infrastructure, but it is equally a demand side issue. The question that you asked earlier, that how do we change the mindsets of both our companies and also our employees, that they kind of move to shared transportation and they start walking and cycling.
Right. So let me now come to Fidelity in some sense, and your outlook for the kind of businesses that are coming or the new verticals that you're seeing in the year ahead.
See, I mentioned earlier that we have gone through a very massive expansion. So a couple of years back, I think we were in there was a bit of a question mark. There was a lot of security concerns. That's when the whole Mumbai attacks had happened, and there were concerns that is the India kind of story sustainable. And that was a point we kind of built new sites. So we built a site in Dahlia and we built a site in Tunisia. I think 3 years hence, I think we've come out very, very, very strongly. Now that we have a global network, I think it has made it even clearer that the India proposition, which is the combination of cost plus talent, is extraordinarily powerful. compared to any other location out there that we as Fidelity can access. The India proposition is very, very, very strong.
And and you're saying this has been demonstrated to everyone, your principals, your clients, or your internal clients actually.
Yeah, our internal stakeholders. So, and this has been based not just on data, but based on evidence of running a global network, right? And that's as a result of that we have seen this huge growth. So our company, we are growing from being an asset management firm into building a lot more of a distribution business. That means a very significant scale up in terms of our technology and operations capability. So a very large proportion of that investment into technology and operations is coming to India. So if I look at the numbers now, 70% of our global software development capability is now in India. 50% of our global finance is in India. 45% of our customer services or operations are in India. So that's one part of the story. The other part of the story is not just around scale, but around the nature of activities. So over the last couple of years, we have set up a customer analytics group. Now that is the only customer analytics group for Fidelity. So Fidelity International. Now historically, we have never had an customer analytics group. The India kind of cost plus talent plus domain expertise kind of opportunity really gave us, made that analytics investment a lot more possible. Yeah. We've also now set up our global strategy and planning team here. And I think that's very interesting that normally the perception of a offshore center, especially quote unquote that of a captive, is that this is a bunch of order takers, somebody is defining and they're doing it. The strategy and planning team for Fidelity Worldwide Investment is now based in India. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So now these may be small. Of our 2,000 people, our analytics team is 10 people. Our strategy planning team is 5 people. We have an investment research team which is 30 people. So in the bigger, in terms of scale, they may not be big numbers, but in terms of
top of the value chain. Yeah.
But in terms of the CEO's share of mind, and what it means for the company, I think this is very, very significant.
Right, and you see more of that happening in coming
Absolutely.
months and years?
Absolutely.
Right, Nitin, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Okay, cheers.